Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney Save. Today we're going to be working on a rental for Willow Creek called 21 Royal. I'm going to talk a little bit about what this place actually is because I feel like this might be one of those builds that's not as obvious as some of the ones I've done previously. So we're definitely going to get into the premise behind today's actual building and the references and everything. But this is first and foremost a replacement lot. So formerly here on this lot was the Bimbet's cottage, and that cottage is going to be moved to Henford on Bagley. This is the last little lot in this area. Definitely check out the other build videos if you happen to have missed any of them. There were two Dumbo themed builds. We just did Mama Odie's treehouse, which you'll see kind of in the background here and there throughout the video. And then we have today's build. So when they added rentals to the game with Mount Komorebi and Snowy Escape, I really wanted to try my best to add a rental into every world. Because in my opinion, I feel like no matter what Sims you play with, and in the Disney Save specifically, of course, it doesn't really matter what Sims you use, or if you're the type of person that intends to play it in like a storyline format or just kind of go crazy, most people want the ability to move Sims around, be able to stay in like a weird location. I think the idea of rentals, like essentially, is really great. And when I originally did Willow Creek for the first time, they were not available. So after that, I sort of was like, yeah, let's make sure we add a rental to every world in the Disney Save. There's going to be exceptions to this when a world is too small, like Forgotten Hollow was never going to fit a rental, and I sometimes think that it maybe doesn't work out depending on the world, and if it's even in that in-between phase where it's like not the smallest world, but we just don't really have the space for a rental. But Willow Creek is definitely not that. Willow Creek has quite a few lots, and I did say I wanted to keep this area largely residential, but I thought that this might be a really cool exception because it is a residential, but it's more so just that you could have like a sim come and obviously stay here for a little bit. So I was kind of browsing through ideas of like what could make a good rental for this lot. It has to be relatively small. This is not a super huge lot. I think it's a little bit bigger than a 20 by 15, but I'm not totally sure. And then of course we're building in Willow Creek, so a lot of the area is very based after New Orleans, and I want to try to keep everything as cohesive as possible. And now that we've replaced everything in this area and basically removed all of the Beauty and the Beast stuff, it feels super cohesive. So this was kind of one of the last things that I needed to figure out and just try to keep it all matching within the set. So I was actually doing some research on the Disney parks because somebody in my Patreon Discord had recommended possibly doing a New Orleans Square themed build, which I really loved the idea of. So I was investigating New Orleans Square a bit. I have not been to either of the Disney parks in the US, so I just am not super familiar with it. And I was like, what's there? Like, what do we have going on? What's something that I could borrow? And it is very much filled with like tons of restaurants, tons of clubs, little shopping centers, bakeries, candy stores, things like that. But I really, like I said, wanted to keep this more as like a residential of some kind. And I ended up coming across what I think is a really cool compromise. So 21 Royal is located in Disneyland, and it was formerly being built as a secondary secret apartment for Walt Disney. So his original one, the more famous one that is above the fire station, that's the one that we built in Evergreen Harbor and probably the one that most people are familiar with. But what you might not know is that he was working on a second one, and the reason he wanted a second one there was because the first one was kind of small, a little bit intimate, very much designed for him and his wife Lillian, and he wanted a more private space where he could entertain guests. So he essentially wanted like a second apartment in the parks, a secret place for him to have company, business meetings, things like that. So it was located, I think there is a street in New Orleans Square called Royal Street, and it was being built as 21 Royal. Now, Walt ended up actually passing before the completion of the apartment, so it never actually saw the light of day technically. And then in more recent years, Disney has taken the design of the apartment and turned it into a really exclusive dining experience. And I mean like the most exclusive that is in Disneyland as far as I can tell. So basically how this goes is you can rent this building. It's about $15,000 for the evening, and you get catered like a 5-star dinner, and it's just crazy. The wait list is crazy for it. Obviously the price is very, very insane for it. It was hard for me to find any information about this. I was very fortunate that I did stumble eventually across Disney Food Blog, who had gone at one point doing a really in-depth overview of the entire experience and just taking tons of photos of the interior. Super helpful for my build. But for the most part, other than that, I couldn't find too many people who had documented doing it because it's obviously like a very, very expensive experience. And they mentioned that they split it amongst like a large group of people, so that's obviously something that is optional, but it is advertised as kind of like a rented experience inside of Disney because all of the furniture, all of the original design of that apartment that Walt and Lillian were working on is moved to this building and kind of replicated to be what the apartment would have looked like. So I thought it would be a really good idea to maybe just turn that into an actual rental. We could have gone for like a very high dining experience here, but we have so many restaurants in Willow Creek. I did not want to add another one. There's really no need for it. Whereas this is something that's just a bit different. And yes, it is like a dining experience in Disney, but it still has multiple bedrooms, multiple living rooms. It had like a whole patio. It has this special patio slash porch off the back of the building that faces onto some of the performance areas in Disneyland so that you can get like a really exclusive experience of like watching fireworks and watching shows and parades and things like that. So you kind of rent the building for that whole thing. You can't actually stay there for the evening, unfortunately. You would think for that price you might be able to actually like stay there, but yeah, you can't. However, all of the furniture is there and like the rooms are set up and kind of propped up nonetheless. So I was able to find a lot of really great reference of the interior of this, and I just thought it would make a cute little build. It's in that classic like New Orleans style architecture. It fits super well with the area and everything else that we've been working on here, and it is, as far as I know, somebody's gonna correct me, but as far as I know, the only other apartment that Walt Disney had been working on. So now both of them are featured in the save. If you have missed the other one, I did build the Firehouse secret apartment in Evergreen Harbor. It was actually a fan request that I offer on my Patreon, which is kind of like a once per world option for people to submit requests to the save. There's a couple of like rules and caveats and things to it, especially depending on the world that I'm working on, but it was a really, really cool one because Evergreen Harbor introduced the idea of firefighters again. So to do a firehouse in that world definitely made a lot of sense. And now I'm glad that both of them are going to be represented in the save. Aesthetically on the interior, they are designed extremely similarly. The only difference, I feel like this one had a lot more variation in color. This one had like a cream, red, royal blue, and gold color palette, whereas the other apartment was extremely small and just like red and white. And I always describe it as like the Titanic for some reason. The interior of it just reminds me of that era, and I guess that's what I think of it as when I'm doing like not just that build but this one as well. It was like very Titanic to me. There was a pretty big cut in the video there as far as the exterior goes, and I do apologize for that. I don't usually like to cut footage like that, but the reality of this build is that I was just really, really struggling with it. There were a couple of problems right off the bat with attempting to do this. Number one, I could not find, for the life of me, any great references of this building from the front. And I have two theories why this is the case. So from the research that I've done, and if anybody knows anything more about this, please feel free to like let me and others know down in the comment section below. But from the research that I have done about this building, it was formerly something else. And then when they decided that they were going to make 21 Royal available, they sort of like moved all of the furniture here. So this is probably not the original building that the apartment was being set up in. It is located in New Orleans Square, and everybody who takes pictures of like going to the experience or they're near it always takes pictures from the side. There's like these side stairs. They're actually rounded stairs, which would have been really great to be able to represent accurately in this build. But it's always taken from like the side of the building. And Having done research on New Orleans Square as well, it's very windy, twisty roads and streets, and hard to see like accurate, good reference of the front of buildings because things are kind of close together. So I understand why people would probably have like a hard time getting really great reference of it, but I was largely unable to find anything from like a front shot of the building. And being that this is such an exclusive experience, I was like, why does everybody who goes here and is excited and is going to take like that little Instagram photo and be like, I'm doing 21 Royal, why do they always take the photo from the staircase at the side of the building? And then I realized that I believe the front of the building is now covered by trees. I think it's kind of hidden and tucked into the side of another building in New Orleans Square. I also believe this building was at one point Pirates of the Caribbean related, because I essentially found the exact same building from a few years ago, and there were no trees in front of it, but it had a big plaque on it that said Pirates of the Caribbean, and that was the only reference I could find from the front of the building. So I used a lot of that when it came to like actually designing this. Also kind of important to note, because this is located in New Orleans Square, it's attached to like a set of other buildings. So in Disneyland, this is like stuck in between a group of another set of buildings. So to pull all of it out and decide like what's actually a part of this building versus like what's more of the building next door, kind of a complicated thing. I had a lot of issues with shape. And then the last thing that was really bothering me was the roofing. I hated how the roofing was coming out in the translation from like real life to The Sims. This doesn't normally happen to me. I feel like I can get everything pretty much to work. Like people will be like, I don't know how you're going to do that in The Sims. And I usually have no issues. And really going into a building kind of as simple as this one, I didn't think for one second that this was going to be an issue, but the top of the building has a very strange shape. There are multiple roof pieces that are not really possible in The Sims. And then what I was describing on stream is that it almost looks like the White House topper was like smacked on top of the building. There's like a flag, there's this round room. It kind of kills the aesthetic of the architecture, and it looks very much like something that was like a mismatch of ideas, and it looks okay in real life, but in The Sims and for my build, I hated it so much. I couldn't actually get past a point on stream where I was like comfortable continuing because I didn't know what to do. And I essentially just decided I was going to do a custom roof that I felt like fit a lot better for this building style and for like a New Orleans style building. So I just want to say that if you have seen 21 Royal in person and this building is like different, yeah, definitely it is. I changed it. It looks much better this way in The Sims, and some things just don't translate well. It doesn't, I feel like it really doesn't happen that often for me, but this was definitely one of those experiences where I couldn't get it to look good, and I didn't want it to kill this area. Everything in this little nook has turned out so good, and I've been very excited about all of the new builds, and I didn't want to go to that overhead map and look down on that god-awful roof and have it just ruin everything that I had been working for. So I changed it. I simplified it to be that more like classic New Orleans style. We're still keeping the bright colors. The building is literally pink, which is something I wouldn't have gone with if not for the fact that I am 99% sure, based on the references, that that is the case. And it looked like the top part of the building was blue. There were blue windows, there were blue doors. So we have lots of color here that essentially doesn't match the interior at all. But I am trying to stay honorable to the original building, just maybe tone it down a little bit so that it translates well to The Sims. The other thing that I definitely had to change was just basically like the size of the interior. I'm working on a small lot here, and from what I can tell, the building itself has 2 or 3 bedrooms, an office, a couple of spaces that are for entertainment. There are walkways, there's patios, there was all sorts of stuff. It's connected to a larger set of buildings where they have probably like sort of moved the rooms into those buildings as well. So to simplify it and probably like highlight some of the most important parts, I did a master bedroom and a master bathroom that are very much replicated after stuff that I found from Disney food blogs. So this would technically be like Walt and Lillian's room, but the room that your sim would most likely stay in. But if you wanted to bring another sim here, there is an additional bedroom. It's not a part of today's video, but it is a 1 bed. So you could bring a total of 3 Sims here if you wanted to. There are still 2 entertainment spaces. There's the one upstairs that's like the main dining area, very much replicated after a lot of the references. And then there is an area right outside of this bedroom that I just had like kind of a lot of open space, and I didn't want to put the living room in the middle of this area because I really wanted the living room to be up against the doors. So I ended up doing a smaller dining area in the middle there. Kitchen is located upstairs. It is a little weird to like come up the stairs and walk into the upper part of the building to get in, but that's why all of the bedrooms are downstairs, because normally I would flip that. And when I was originally trying to figure out how I was going to lay this place out, I was trying to fit bedrooms upstairs, because to me, I always feel like bedrooms go upstairs, but because you're walking into the upstairs, that really has to be like the kitchen and main dining, and then you go downstairs for the more formal living room and the bedroom and the cozier areas of the home. This entire build definitely has a sense of like higher, more expensive furniture. There was a lot of gold trimming, intricately detailed furniture, and the bathroom off of the master bedroom was really interesting. Even for the time, like I just imagine the time that this building was being created in, I felt like the bathroom just really screamed like something a little bit more modern, like something I would see in somebody's like really nice house. And it had like this walk-in open tiled shower with like these beautiful blue tiled mosaics done into the wall and everything. Really, really pretty and intricate and very interesting. And that was something I definitely wanted to recreate as well. There is another bathroom upstairs also, just so that you don't have to walk through the master bedroom to get to the bathroom. There is a smaller bathroom upstairs in the little dining area. And overall, the layout for this was just really tough because I wanted to fit so many of the things that I was seeing in the references, but we just didn't have as much space here as I would have liked, and the shape of the building is so hard. Also, a lot of windows. I love to do windows for these New Orleans style buildings, but when you do so many windows, you sort of take away from the idea of putting furniture against walls, and this build very much required me to do that. So I was trying to add additional walls and like maybe close in the spaces a little bit more, which again for this build does feel very accurate. Even with the living room and everything, I had this like sort of weird divided fireplace wall that was kind of like right in front of a door, and it actually ends up getting taken away because it chunks out the room and makes it look really funny, and I just kind of hated it overall. So if you hate it, don't worry about it, it actually goes. But it was more important that I like made sure there was a fireplace in there, right? Because like this type of a living room where you're gonna have guests over and the time period, it would have a fireplace. This is not like a TV space, you know what I mean? So I needed that wall to be able to put the fireplace against, but you have a room that's just completely surrounded by windows. So it's kind of hard. Like you have to pick, am I going to block a window with a fireplace? Probably not. And then if you take away a window, it takes away from the exterior of the building. It's a constant struggle that I have whenever I build like literally anything, but I managed to make it all kind of work. Some of the stuff that's not included in the video is of course included in the screenshots at the end, so definitely stay tuned for that. And then yeah, for the last part of the video, we're going to work on that bathroom that I mentioned earlier that had this like little walk-in tile area and exposed shower. It had these little platform nooks where they had various towels and things kind of stacked, which again plays into the idea of like, why can't you rent this place out? It has such beautiful bathrooms and dining spaces and bedrooms and everything. Really, really fun and unique. I bet you it's one of those things where it's like, you can stay here, but you gotta really know somebody, because the fireplace apartment was more like a museum. Like things are kind of blocked off and it's almost meant for you to look at it and not really step into it. This was different. This is like a functioning home, and I would bet there is a way to stay here, but you have to just like know the right person. Even with this bathroom, definitely a struggle with these big windows, but I just pictured sitting in that clawfoot bathtub and like being near the window. It's like a private, I don't know, it's your house. You're not really worried about that too much. You could cover it if you wanted to, but I just feel like these higher end spaces, you would see something like this, like a beautiful clawfoot tub or just a beautiful like old style tub in front of the window that you can kind of like look out. And it doesn't make the most sense, but if it was in a little bit more of a secluded area, it definitely would be something that a lot of people would do. Now, we do have one more build for Willow Creek, so make sure you stay tuned. And then we are going to be moving on to Henford on Bagley. And the last build that we have for Willow Creek is really fun. I'm very excited about it. It's like a very diverse lot. It's going to require a lot of detail. I'm already working on it on stream, so if you want to come hang out, my Twitch is always linked in the description box down below. Come check out a stream, come hang out. I'm probably going to be taking a break from streaming very soon because I have a lot of travel and things going on. I'll make a little bit of an announcement about that kind of stuff. It's not a YouTube break, it's literally just a streaming break while I prep content for me being away. So I'm only going to be streaming for a little bit longer before my break. So come hang out. Make sure you check out a stream. And that is going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.